I always used to say, they always used to say to me, "You're like an African mama," and I'd say, "Yeah, they spray painted me wrong." But that was because I had the most amazing woman that became almost like a mum to me, Jane, and she was just such an inspiration, the kindest, plain, down-to-earth woman. And she lived with me in my home, and she was like a mother and a sister, and I learned so much about life from her. I think I kind of like imprinted off her. And so my story is quite complicated. It jumps a bit backwards and forwards, but basically the first baby, Daniel Jan Hugo, was born in 2005, and he died. And he was stolen from the crematorium, and I fought for him for 2 years to find out that information, and I fought about his actual, the inquiry into what I deemed to be a botched birth. It was not handled correctly, for 5 years. And then we swing right forward to now, to the fact that my kids are kind of like roughing me up and saying, we're going to do things how we think it should be done. And I must tell you that in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, they've done this every now and then, but not quite as badly as this, and it hasn't worked. But that's because there are children trying to live and make decisions as adults, and they are trying to force adult decisions to be pushed down and pushed aside because they think they know better. I'll give an example. I think it was about 6 years ago, one of my children went to work for someone at a beauty salon, and they are very wealthy, and they kind of fell in love with her and sort of said, we can do everything and anything that you want. If you lived with us, you'd be a princess. And a very big family fight also took place around that time, and off she went. And I just felt that it wasn't the right way that things were done. I said, I don't go around shopping in other people's houses for their children. I don't, when I go to an area where people are less privileged than me, try and sell my house and what I can do for children to people. I have, in fact, looked after a little boy while his sister was very ill and was having her leg amputated because of cancer. Her mom had been a domestic worker in my house, and she didn't know what to do with Clinton. And I said to her, well, he always comes and plays with my kids, and they're so used to him that he is more than welcome just to maak asof hy mal is en doen sommer alles, get in, be part of the gang. And for a couple of months she lived with us. And when my sister fell pregnant with her child, she also tends to suffer from depression and anxiety, and so I had spent a lot of time looking after her child. And at a certain point in time, when he was in standard 1, he really, really was giving her a hard time. And again, she came to me and said, would you look after him for a year or two? Would you take him to where you live and just give me a gap? I will come up every couple of weekends and spend time with him. I'm just finding him too demanding. And we put him into the local little private school in Legullis, and he really, really did very well. And he changed a lot. He loved it, and he, instead of being so whiny and demanding, he really grew up. And I think it was a good year for him. So I've not only raised my own children, and funny enough, my first daughter, her father went completely derailed. He was a Christian man when I got married to him, and he got a job up at a Trinity in Johannesburg. He went off there. I joined him 6 months later, and he was like a totally different person. He was partying, smoking, drinking, completely wild, and kind of went back to his lifestyle that he had before I had met him. And I landed up raising her for her entire life without any assistance from him. No money, no maintenance, no contribution towards anything, schooling, uniforms, medical, dental, nothing. And the man that I met after that, I always said I want to meet someone that is plat op die aarde, that is what you see is what you get. And I met an Afrikaans man in a little town in Robertson McGregor area, and I decided not to get married to him. I was very nervous of getting married again, and we had 5 children that survived the births. One that I call my angel. So we had 6 children, but the one, Daniel, died. And after Daniel, I had another baby, which is Sebastian. And I had him in a completely different hospital, with a completely different, he was my only cesarean baby. And after the birth, I noticed he didn't suckle properly, and I felt like I was a very experienced breastfeeding mum after all my other children. They'd all been breastfed for a year and a half to 2 years. I noticed that he just couldn't get a proper latching on. And after many weeks of struggling and following the wrong diagnosis, we were shifted between Grooteskier and Red Cross Children's Hospital, and it was eventually established that Sebastian had what they call a subdural hematoma, which is a bleed between the actual skull and the brain. And what had happened is, because it took so long for them to figure out what was wrong with him, it had pushed a section of his brain on the left-hand lower lobe back and deprived it of oxygen. So he had what they call an infarct, which was similar to that of someone having a very severe stroke. And he was completely catatonic, very limp, very lifeless. And I was really concerned, like, will this child ever lead a normal life? And every milestone that he achieved, everything that he has become, has been with a lot of effort, a lot of commitment, and a lot of patience, and also addressing issues sometimes from many different angles. So he is a miracle. He is the most amazing little boy. I'm going to put a little video of him on so that you can get to see him. At the moment, I'm fighting for my rights and Sebastian's rights to come home. He has been manipulated, and he has been coached, and he has been, I think, pretty much also made scared and been a little bit conned into staying in Cape Town. You know, in my house, he's not allowed to play GTA because it's 18 and violent, and I don't want to encourage violence because he suffers from autistic sort of symptoms. You know, he does certain things that are on the autism spectrum, and I don't want him to be involved with things that can actually bring out violence, violent tendencies, etc. So, you know, one of the things that I noticed was that once they came up with this concept of him staying there with them, they allowed him to start playing GTA, which for him is like a huge carrot. They also would not let him talk to me. His WhatsApp just says that he was last on WhatsApp on the 4th of the 1st. When I do phone several times, then sometimes they answer and they'll have the phone on speakerphone. And if he starts to talk about certain things, I can hear them, you know, persuading him off that subject, sort of saying something to him, and then I can hear the way he changes what he was about to say. So